Hello, how are you doing, Timo?
Your cat cracks me up all the time.
It's fantastic. It's little Idris. I just, it's really good, isn't it? I love that little intro. How are you anyway? How are you this evening, Timo?
Fine, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I've got my fire going in the background.
Yeah, it's
And
lovely.
it's autumn coming. It's lovely, but it is a little bit hot. So today, one of our favourite subjects. This is just going to be an introduction. I'm sure we'll do follow-ups because it's such a huge subject. Well, probiotics, the microbiome. So today, we are going to be talking about probiotics. Are they good? Are they not good? The pros and cons and everything. But today, we're trying out a slightly different format. Thank you for those of us. Thank you, Mimi. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Bob, for joining us. We're going to try going through the subject matter of the things that Timo and I want to discuss today about probiotics for pets. And then we'll go back at the end and answer the questions because that will keep the flow of the subject going a bit more rather than getting distracted perhaps with questions that aren't directly related to what we're talking about.
Great, let's start.
So let's launch into it. So, first of all, what are probiotics, Timo?
All right, there are two definitions for it. There is the legal definition that says it has to be dried or live bacteria, certain strains that you take directly to repopulate your intestinal tract or change the population of the intestinal tract to get rid of the bad bacteria or have some bacteria at least after having antibiotics therapy, heavy diarrhea, or something. Then there is the other definition that people use any type of bacteria or that kind of yogurt or whatever it is that you take or your dog and cat takes, and it repopulates, brings healthy, helpful bacteria, right? So we will use both because we cover all of it. And it will be shocking for many people that we are not big fans of this type of therapy, let's say, but there is a good reason for it. We will explain that, and we will also explain how to do the job of probiotics without using probiotics, especially how you do it. I find it really, really good. We will discuss that too. But the most important thing is we have to understand how the microbiome is dependent on food and environment, and how this is far more important than you are putting some powder into the mouth and hoping that it will repopulate everything properly. So that means we try to find out why the shortcut doesn't work and what to do instead to have a positive impact.
Yeah, fantastic. And it's something, as you know, that I have been studying, researching, using in the practical sense for, 15 years at least in my sort of personal and professional career. And the information is moving on really fast, which is really fantastic. So we've got a lot better understanding of what we're going to be talking about now than perhaps was available 5 years ago. But I think it's good that you've distinguished between, the sort of medical definition and the everyday definition of the probiotic, because as we go through this talk, you're going to see that's really, really important because people are often getting the wrong end of the stick of what they're using. So before we get onto the microbiome, what about prebiotics? We hear about probiotics, we hear about prebiotics. What are
Oh,
prebiotics,
all
Timo?
right. So the reason why we use the word probiotic is because it's a useful bacteria. So things that are positive for us. Prebiotics are the food that help the bacteria to grow. So these are like type of different fibers, sometimes some minerals. We will talk about it, very important. And everything that supports these bacteria to grow and repopulate and do their job are called prebiotics, mostly some type of fibers. Yeah, and extracts. By the way, Janet, hi. I just watched today shortly Seahawks game. I don't know if you're into football. I like American football. Greetings to Washington. So um, let's start what the bacteria do and how to get it. So a dog or cat has actually only three chances to get these bacteria: sniffing, licking, and breathing, or eating. In that sense, licking and eating is the same. So these are the three ways that all the bacteria, some viruses and some parasites, come from the region, repopulate or populate the intestinal tract. Don't forget, the intestinal tract is still not inside of the animal. It's still outside. It's the tract that starts here. It's a free entry. You cannot really stop the entry for bacteria, and it goes out itself. You cannot stop that either. So this is outside of the body, although it is inside for us. Yeah. So the population happens, you want it or not, it will happen. Of course, we are doing ourselves mouthwash. We clean our mouth, brush our teeth, wash our hands all the time, using mask, whatever. We try to find ways to control it, but you cannot control it. Every time you breathe, you take all the things in, and you cannot stop it. As long as you have to breathe, they will get in. And this is super crucial because animals and humans are evolved to live together with these guys. So it's not like we don't want them. We need them. We depend on them. We depend on them for information, environmental information. We depend on them as an immune reaction. We depend on them to protect us from the things that we don't want. We need them to process some food and make it available for us. We depend on them to make some minerals available for us. And we depend on them to tweak our immune system so the immune system neither is too edgy nor too lazy. So it's an important symbiosis for all animals around. Every living thing is in contact with the other living thing. So everyone is dependent on each other in some way. So if you think that by destroying it all the time, it being extremely clean, hygienic, and this, and you are making a disservice to you, to yourself, to your animal, because we need these bacteria. That said, the good bacteria comes from the original food. Hey, hello to Portugal. And comes from the food that is actually supposedly the right one, not the bad one. So if you eat directly from the organic farm, like in Portugal, let's say, that's where you get the good bacteria. If your food is heavily sprayed, you cannot find the right bacteria there because we destroyed them. We make their life impossible. So they cannot populate there, right? If your food is always extremely clean because you want to get rid of the pesticides for you or for your pet, don't get the bacteria. We wash them off. So hard to say as a vet, but hygiene is not always the best friend, neither for you nor for your animals. So they have to have the natural dirt. The soil we call dirt is not dirty. It's necessary. It's full of minerals and all the things. They act like signaling, act like hormones, act like activators for our body and for pets' body that bring health, immune system, dysregulations, many things. That's why it is so important to have healthy organisms in you, living in harmony with you. So when you take antibiotics or you have diarrhea or you took a lot of ibuprofen or whatever different type of non-steroid anti-inflammatory agents like aspirin, whatever, you destroy a lot of them, like genocide, really heavily. So then the doctor says, or someone else, take this. We have 5 strains of bacteria. They are all good for you. We give you 20 billions of them. They will do their job in no time. Everything is fine. The problem is we need at least 30,000 different types of them, not just 5, and not billions of the same one, but in total billions of 30, 40,000 different ones. And if you force populate all these few strains from 5 to 10, even if it's 20, even if it's 100, it's not enough, then you are doing a disservice to repopulate the intestinal tract properly, because you dominate with constant feeding of these probiotics. You force ethnic cleansing, sounds although heavy, but you do ethnic cleansing because you favor 5 or 10 strains and you force them in all the time in big amounts so no one else can populate.
It's so important, and this is a point I wanted to come through just to those of you asking questions. in the chat. We're going to come on to these at the end. As I started off at the beginning, we'll come on to your suggestions. It's very difficult for me to ignore some of them, but I'm trying to be disciplined. So I really want people to understand that if you're feeding a probiotic, and we're going to come on to in a minute whether things like apple cider vinegar are a probiotic. People think they are they really? Let's find out. Because if you're feeding a probiotic, that is going to have between 1 and probably 7 species of bacteria in it.
Mostly, yeah.
Mostly. And particularly the veterinary ones. Now, Timo and I were looking at some of the veterinary ones today. I'm not going to bring them up on the screen because I don't want to pick on particular brands. But a lot of them have just got one species in of one strain of bacteria that's been covered, and then they're present in sort of 50 million of that one species. And as Timo was saying, the guts need 30 millions different species at least of bacteria in there. So if you're just pumping one in there, it overcollinates and can cause all sorts of problems.
Yeah.
So let's talk to people about what do we mean by the microbiome. I know we've got a lot to say on the microbiome because really, that's the reason why people are looking to use probiotics and prebiotics, isn't it? To try and support the microbiome.
Yeah, so the microbiome is like all the plants, the grass, the beetles, the birds, the flowers, and the forest. If your intestinal tract is a forest, this is all that's on it. Right? It's a part of the whole system. So they work with each other. And the microbiome are mostly bacteria. Of course, some viruses, some protozoa, some parasites, they're all part of it. You like it or not, doesn't matter. So they are a part of it because it's still outside of you. Although you think it's inside, it's still not you. It's on you. And they populate it and they work together with you. Of course, they feed all off of you with things that you are putting in. But in return, they give a lot of things that you couldn't have without them. So that's why it's a symbiosis, right? So I give an example. Let's say we have a nice little town, and the town has a baker, has a butcher, has a banker, has a police officer, has fire fighters, whatever. Every type of occupation is occupied by an expert, right? And this town functions. So something happens, it's destroyed, we try to repopulate. It makes no sense to put a baker in every one of these occupations. It will not work. Or a banker. So you need the specialist to do the job. That's the same with the strains of different bacteria. So they have to be in different strains there to make it happen for you in balance. If you have only 1 or 2 strains, they just overpopulate, but it's like you don't want to have a military doing all the job for you. You cannot have a colonel doing the job of a banker. It will not work. Maybe it works in one instance, but generally it wouldn't, right? That's why it's important to have this microbiome in balance. And balance means, in this sense, they live together in harmony and they benefit you and you benefit them. So E. coli, very good example. E. coli, everybody knows it, right? E. coli is actually beneficial for us in certain amounts, as long as they are not overpopulated. They do a certain job, and we need them. The moment they overtake, then we have a problem. So that means the balance is the most important thing for us. Okay? To get this balance, we cannot force any type of bacteria all the time in huge quantities. That's why we, in case Catherine and I, we do not support constant use of probiotics. But there are, of course, other alternatives. There are fermented liquids with a lot of different bacteria that fermentate freely, no forced strains, nothing. So they are in balance there, and they will be in balance in the intestinal tract. Of course, some of you like to eat Sauerkraut, as we say in German, and or some other fermented things that they have their own microbiome that help us repopulate. But in case of again an antibacterial agent coming in, antibiotics or some other drugs or heavy diarrhea, yeah, you can use 1 to 5 days these bacteria, these strains. You bring them in, they do their job, but then you leave the rest to the nature and to get the balance back. You cannot force the balance; it doesn't work.
Absolutely. And I think, what's really important to understand is that the microbiome, this ecosystem that we've got of bacteria, viruses, fungi, parasites, etc., it's within our bodies, but as you've already said, the gut is really external. That starts at the sinuses, goes all the way down, and then ends at your bottom. And then you've also got microbiomes on your skin in different
Even in brain.
and things in your brain, in your breasts, in all the different areas have got different microbiomes. And unfortunately, a lot of modern living is constantly disrupting them. So one problem I see a lot now is people send their dogs to the groomers all the time, and the groomers are using chemical shampoos and all sorts of products on them. So they're constantly disrupting the skin and the coat microbiome. I mean, today we're really concentrating on the digestive system microbiome, because that's where most of the microbiome sort of sits and most of the immune system sort of sits and functions. But it is important that people realize that we've got, the microbiome that's in your mouth is important, that's on your skin's important, that's in your ears, in every area of the body. And what we're doing a lot of the time with the decisions we make with this over cleanliness is constantly disrupting it. So it's constantly challenged to start again. And it can't start again healthily if we're not giving it the right building blocks and, the food, the air, the soil, etc.
That's correct. And one of the biggest problems, especially for animals, because we still have free choice, we can still go to run in a forest, go for holidays somewhere nice that we have more contact with the earth. A cat that lives in an apartment has almost zero natural materials around. So no bacteria is growing naturally. The only bacteria that might grow is pathogenic bacteria on the bowl or around the litter box, something. But mostly the things that the cat needs doesn't come, because neither the door is natural, the floor is natural, the table is natural, the spoon, nothing that this cat touches every day has proper bacteria on it. Nothing.
Absolutely.
And this is the problem.
Yeah, absolutely, Timo. And I did a little video on my dog walk today to explain this, that I will add on as a separate video on YouTube for people on Instagram and things, and explaining that, because if we can't let our pets have access to nature, because this also applies to a lot of people that live in city and urban environments as well, where they're not getting the natural exposure to the clean air, to the plants, to the different soil types, to the fungi, to sniffing other animals' poos, to eating rabbit droppings and horse droppings and things, which are all very important, then we as humans have to bring nature back to the animals, and we have to work harder. So if you've got an animal that's in a very humanized environment rather than a sort of natural forest or nature environment, it's important that we understand that we've got to work harder to keep that animal physically and emotionally healthy, because the microbiome also has a huge impact on our emotional health, doesn't it, Timo?
That's correct. That's correct. It has a huge impact on how we feel. It has huge impact on what we want to eat. It has a huge impact on how we digest. It has a huge impact on communicating with our immune system and telling what's outside, what's dangerous outside, or what is good, But the microbiome is not there, or it doesn't know. The bacteria from your marble table knows nothing. The marble is not earth, is not wood, it's not leaf, it's not a fruit, it's not a piece of an animal. So it's like zero information. So your body knows nothing about what the marble does. So what is it,
Exactly. So let's talk about, before we come on to what the problem is with some of the products that people have been asked to use or recommended to use, where in nature, let's just make it really clear for people. So we've talked about the soil, we've talked about the fresh air, we've talked about the food. Let's talk about the impact of diet on the microbiome.
Okay, I start with what Indigo says, which is really correct. The stomach is our second brain. A balanced microbiome means optimal health, which is perfect. But I would suggest that sometimes the stomach or the intestinal tract is more important than the brain
Yeah.
for the overall health. The brain does decisions on certain things on input, but the stomach has far bigger decisions. Intestinal tract has far bigger decisions that might cause our health or death. So it's really important. So a healthy diet, if it's not over processed, will bring most of the nutrients that these bacteria need in a form they need and in quantities they need. Because if you just follow nature as it works, you have the blueprint of things, how they work. You don't really re-engineer things. I don't need a degree, although I don't need a degree in veterinary medicine to understand how food works. You don't need it. You follow what the lion eats, you know what a cat needs. You're done. It's just there is not much discussion about it. Or you follow the wolf, you more or less 99% know what your dog needs. You don't really have to study this too much. And they don't have these problems. They don't have IBS. They don't have puking problems all the time. They don't have itchy skin all the time. They don't have ear problems. Why don't they have them? Because they don't have in their environment what causes this, and we have it. So what we introduce to these animals life causes it, and when we think we can erase these by adding more, which doesn't make any sense. So what we have to do is we have to bring the balance more into their body, even if it's just 30 minutes per day. They have to go out, they have to sniff other animals, they have to sniff other plants, the trees, they have to touch with their nose the soil. For instance, I can give you a very interesting example. For a horse, the horses produce vitamin B12 themselves, but like humans, they cannot absorb much of it. Do you know how they absorb vitamin B12? By sniffing the poo on the floor. This is how they get their vitamin B12. You would never think, but that's the only way for them, because the bacteria in the poo is producing the B12 that they need.
And can I just butt in there? Because I
Yeah,
know we're not talking about horses, but this is so important. And this is why Timo and I look at everything holistically as a whole. So the amount of clients that I work with that's horses are in little paddocks on their own, and they say, oh, it's fine, they've got a horse next door. So that means they're only getting to sniff their own poo. And
yeah,
then when they ride their horses, they won't let them stop and sniff the poo that they come across, because that's rude and that's not walking on, and their heads are tied down. And these behaviors, these natural behaviors, are so important in ways that most of us can't even comprehend. And when we stop our animals acting in a way that's natural to us, there's this snowball of effects that goes on, that pushes their mind and body more and more out of balance. So the main message for me is really pay attention to what your animals are asking to do, and just think, okay, if this is a natural behavior for them, we're going to let them do it.
yeah. We were having, and yes, I think I answered this for Anna Hjalmarsson, because is it good for a dog to sniff poop if living it out? Absolutely, because that's the only natural thing it will get from outside. So I was helping a Belgian rider for international Grand Prix riding, train the horse, and then the lady asked me, how can I improve the body of my horse, the health? I said, let your horse be a horse.
Mm.
So this is so hard for us, because we want to control everything. We think we know better, and it's not important what level of your knowledge you have. uh, what I know is you can never know enough. But when you know very little, you think you know enough. And that's really bad, because you think that by controlling the environment and every behavior of your animal, you have the right to it because you have the brain that is better than theirs. That doesn't work like that. When a dog sniffs the other dog, it gets so much from it. Stuff that you will never, it can blow your mind, because they can understand so many things and they learn so many things, and they intrinsically understand what their environment is, what other problems are. And genetically, epigenetically, let's say, their DNA reacts to the environment by getting the information from other bacteria and other sense of everything, by activating or deactivating genes that might help them survive. So if you take this away, you take away the chance of adapting to the environment, which is crucial to have a happy and healthy life for a longer time.
Yeah,
If not, your dog is 7 years old and you think my dog is already old.
absolutely.
So
So let's come on to
Bob is right.
yes,
Yes, they do.
we are going to come back in a minute and answer the earlier questions. So don't worry, I haven't forgotten about you at all. So let's come into, before we go on and comment on probiotic powers thing here, because we're going to talk about soil-based probiotics. They're not legally probiotics. So
Yeah, that are not. You cannot call them probiotics. That is correct. We like soil-based and fermented products because they are like the real thing, but we cannot call them really probiotics. That might be the problem, because legally they are not. We cannot call that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're going to come on. Let's talk about. So one of my favorite things are the liquid soil-based effective microorganisms, they're often called, because we've got those in a liquid form, which means they're still living. It always makes me laugh when you freeze dry things into powders that's meant to be a living organism, because quite frankly, it's not very living anymore. So the soil-based, let's call them microbes, effective microorganisms, normally you will find on there, won't you, Timo, that the actual bacteria in there won't be listed. They're normally a fermented product. And the reason they're not listed to the general public causes concern normally, because people look at the bottle and they say, oh, it's just, a carbohydrate source, water, and doesn't say much else in there. But there's a very good reason, isn't there, why they don't list the particular bacteria that are in there.
That is correct. First, they cannot know, because nobody can check all the bacteria. It would be a logistical laboratory disaster, because every time they ferment it, some other bacteria are in there. And that is normal. That is totally normal. And the soil is rich, and it comes always with other bacteria. So I like this idea, because especially if the production is in a region that is rich with different plants and bees and all bugs and everything, all of the remains and the products are in this soil. And that's very positive, because it's so rich and it's so diverse. And don't get me wrong, we don't want to have everyone in us all the time, but the good ones will control everything, and everything will be in balance.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've already spoken about some of the problems with the probiotics that you can buy or might be administered by a vet for your cat, dog, other animal, etc. But one of the main things, isn't it, Timo, is the fact of both the form that they're in, so are they still actually living or not, but also narrow range of strains that are present.
That's correct. So some of these freeze-dried bacteria, they are in a hibernation state. Not all of them will survive. Some of them will survive. That's why you need the prebiotics. That means you bring new settlers in, right? But you have to have logistics to the settlers, because if they cannot get anything from outside, they will die out. That's why you have the prebiotics feeding them all the time. So, and that's why most of these probiotic powders come with extra vitamins, minerals, many things that you don't need. Some come even with sweeteners. I don't know why. And and sometimes I have the feeling they just throw in things to make you think that they are better than the other brand. And Obviously, it doesn't really work on the long term. For short term, again, just as a emergency thing, it's okay. But after that, I would go with what Catherine said, with yeah, living fermented living products that are live inside.
Okay, so that leads nicely onto some of the comments. Should we go through some of the comments now,
Yeah.
Timo, and then we can finish
Yeah.
off. So I'm going to sort of work my way back. So we have got here. So let's talk about coconut oil. We've been asking some people saying, is it good to give their dogs? And bear in mind, we're talking about dogs and cats here. So coconut oil, Timo.
All right. So generally speaking, coconut oil has an antibacterial effect that is known. It has 10% to 20% MCT, so medium chained fatty acids inside, which is lauric acid, which is very positive for the health. The problem is the rest is palmitic acid, which is palm oil. So as a food, it's not good. On the skin and as a medicine, it's efficient. But don't think it's a good food for the dog. The dog cannot do much with it. And again, it's palmitic acid, palm oil. I don't think it's anything good for your dog. And the cat is not a fat eater much, so it's not good for the cat either. As food, as medicine or an ointment, it works.
Yeah, so I see a lot of animals self-select coconut oil, as Timo said, for medicinal purposes, and that might be for constipation or diarrhea issues. It might be for fur balls in cats. It might be because they're missing some of the medium-chain fatty acids from their diet. But it is important to separate it from a daily food to something they need, which is basically showing that there's something missing from their diet if they're selecting it regularly. Now, what about sauerkraut?
Okay, sauerkraut, as we say in German, Sauerkraut, it just means sour. How do you say it in English? Unwanted plants in your garden. How you call them? Again.
It's unwanted weeds.
Weeds, yeah. Sauerkraut means sour weed. So that just fermented stuff that nobody wanted to eat without fermenting it. And it's good as long as you don't cook it and don't use too much salt, because it just destroys everything. So sauerkraut, if happens naturally in a jar, it's very helpful also for the dogs, but don't do it salty and don't cook it.
And I think it's really important. So what we're talking about here throughout the lot of it, and this is what we're encouraging, is we're encouraging foods that help promote an environment that allows a wide range of your microbiome and your animal's microbiomes to thrive. So sauerkraut isn't a probiotic, but it's
a prebiotic in the same place.
It's a great fermented food source that encourages a healthy, thriving, diverse microbiome, which is really, really good. So going back, I'm just finding the comment about apple cider vinegar.
Yeah.
Lots of controversy about this one. People love it or hate it.
Yeah, so any type of vinegar is acidic in nature at the contact, but apple cider vinegar becomes more alkaline after it's digested. But until it's digested, it's acidic. All right, it's vinegar. So yes, it might have very positive effects on the human bodies. From some parts we know why, some we don't. But I don't think that it's a good probiotic. We cannot call it probiotic anyway. And the bacteria that might cause it is very limited. And I don't think it's a very rich and diverse source. But you can use it as medicine, as we talked before. So we don't want to discourage you from using it as medicine, but don't think regularly giving it will repopulate the intestinal tract magnificently. Wow, I like this word.
Yes. I must say, with apple cider vinegar, it's something I've experimented a lot with over the years. And as you say, you're going to get, with any of this stuff, you'll get some health professionals that will go on about how amazing these things are, others. animals know far better than us humans what they need and when they use it. So one tip for apple cider vinegar with dogs and cats, and also with horses and other animals, is to have a separate water bowl down and put some of the apple cider vinegar in there, and then have your normal water, and then just let your animal choose which ones it wants. Because actually sometimes by actually dosing these things, by adding to the food, you're giving away their choice as to whether their body needs it at that time or not.
That is correct. I agree. Can we find the one with the silver? That's important.
Yes, I was just coming on to that one, and then we're going to go on to the ears. So
Okay,
yeah,
so
silver.
Maggie, silver helps you with a lot of problems, especially if you have bacteria in you that produces a lot of toxins constantly. If some food is not digested properly, I don't know your age, but some people, when they get older, some of the food, especially meat and meat pieces, might stay in the intestinal tract and cause really big trouble. For that, silver is very efficient. Silver is also efficient if you have Lyme disease and it reaches your joints and destroys all the bacteria there too. But the problem is with the silver, uh, silver is a blind mass murderer. So it destroys everything it touches. It doesn't care. It doesn't care about symbiosis. It's like carpet bombing. It's you don't look who is there. You just get rid of everything. In some cases, it might work. Sometimes, if you have really dangerous things happening in you, you just drink a bit and then you start from a clean slate, so to speak. That sometimes works. You can do it also with clay, with other things. But I am not a fan of drinking silver at all because it doesn't belong to the body. Silver has no role in the body, and the body tries to get rid of it. And it's really hard to get rid of it. And it destroys balance. It just attacks enzymes, and it's dangerous thing to have in the body if you don't have to. But yes, for some people it works for their joints. It removes the bacteria if you have Lyme disease and things. But generally speaking, is it healthy? No. It's like chemotherapy. It helps some people and it might save you. But would you drink it every day? I don't think so.
Yeah, I must say I always have colloidal silver in my first aid kit, so that
It's good for cleaning.
You've got one of the animals or one of us has a wound, and I can just get it on there quickly to stop any infection taking hold, and I find it absolutely invaluable for that.
Yeah.
But you say a lot of these things we use as medicines as and when needed, which I'm sure is probably what this lady meant. Now, dogs with chronic ear infections, this is absolutely 100% related to the microbiome, isn't it, Timo?
Yes, and vaccination. So both.
Yeah.
And they're actually correlated. So first of all, I want to correct something. The dog is not from Denmark. I don't know why French call them Danes, but the Danois. But they are not from Denmark. I don't know why they are Danes. Okay, let's move on. So they are actually very prone to ear problems, and they are prone to a lot of immune problems, and they are prone to intestinal tract problems because they have such a huge chest, such big weight, such long limbs, but such a thin waist. And their intestinal tract and their stomach is not really in tune with the rest of their body. So that's why I am always, when I talk about the Great Danes, I think about feeding them multiple times in smaller amounts to avoid, extreme problems with the intestinal tract. So first of all, check their vaccination, if you're over-vaccinated or not. This is important to know. And second thing is, I don't know what you're giving them, how you clean your house, what agents you are using. Are you bringing them to the groomer? What? But all of them has an impact on the microbiome, because what cannot come in cannot populate. And if you keep on destroying everything around, it might has a negative impact. Also, check if you have etheric oil based cleaning agents. How do you say it? Scent. These pipes
scented,
with
the candles or the
candles and things that
like
contain these type of
air fresh.
oils. and that might cause a big trouble. And check if you have also antiparasitary collars. These can cause it.
Or the spot on drops behind the neck.
Yeah. And if they're out, if you have a garden or if they have free reign around, check the plants that might have contact with the ears. But of course, if they have both chronic ear problem, I don't think it's because of the wheat, because if it's chronic, it happens in the winter too. So I don't think that is, but let's say. And if you live in a industrial environment or agricultural environment, check if your dogs are in contact with pesticides and those type of pollutants.
Yeah. So the diet course will really, really help you, Janet, because diet is absolutely key, because that for getting your dogs on the right diet is going to really help to recolonize the microbiome as it should be. But we'll also probably need to look at with your dogs, if they've got chronic ear infections, getting some of the poisons out. And I'll finish off by talking about this amazing little product that will really help with that. I just wanted to go back to Mimi because Mimi asked at the start, Timo. Now, this isn't, we can't go into this in a lot of detail, Mimi, but we can in relation to diet and the microbiome. And so what Mimi followed up with this, Timo, is that the dog keeps vomiting regular food and things, but obviously it's had quite a lot going on.
Yeah. So, so when you operate, so every time you open the belly, for no matter what, it's a huge shock for the body. And some animals or some humans never, ever recover from this. So even it's just opening up and stitching it together. So this has to be known. Second, you also bring narcotics into the body because you want to keep the animal between life and death in the sleeping situation. It's far beyond sleeping, but shortly before death, you want to keep them there. So necrosis is nothing new. After that kind of, it's a heavy operation, and you might have to blend all your food, but then you have to make sure that your dog chews enough so that something, maybe ribs, some bone, or a big sheep's femur or humerus, and that keeps chewing, so the teeth are under pressure and they have contact, and the food though is almost liquid or smooth, so to speak, so that the digestion is far quicker. What you can do, you can also add some drops of porcine digestive enzymes, or some nice pineapple, fresh sliced pineapples and mangoes, which have these enzymes also, so to make the life easier for the intestinal tract. Then I think you will have a smoother way up, instead of having constant battle.
Yeah. So Mimi, definitely the nutrition course, you can ask specific questions in there as well. But what we're saying differently for you is, rather than when you're making your food to be feeding big chunks, blend it up first for your dog once you've got the meal, so to make it easily digestible.
Yeah.
Fantastic. A couple of other good questions here. Long-term skin problems. It's very similar to what we were just saying about the ear problems, isn't it, Timo?
Yeah, it's very related. Actually, both ears and skin is normally the mirror of intestinal tract. And it's everything that happens inside shows itself outside. If you don't have makeup, of course, you cannot see it. If you have constant makeup, that's another problem. But yes, and the constant skin problems comes mostly from mineral imbalance, for sure. It's like every time you read anything about what the results are from certain mineral deficiencies, is always skin suffers the first. Skin, coat, and nails, or in some animals, the hoofs. Yeah. So they are all connected. They are made similarly from similar materials. And if you don't have the right amount of minerals in right proportions, like too much phosphorus all the time, then some of the minerals will not be absorbed properly.
Yeah. So again, with the chronic skin conditions, the diet, the dog nutrition course, or if it's a cat, the cat nutrition course, and then making sure you're looking at, I'm going to summarize in a minute, but you've got to get those toxins out of the body as well to allow it to clear. Aspiring alchemist, come on, give me a chance. I'm getting through the questions as quickly as I can. So your dogs had 1 round of antibiotics, raw cow's kefir and raw goat's milk. Is that enough for recovery?
No, kefir is not very rich and it's not very useful for the dog. Might be beneficial for you, but you are not sharing the same bacteria because your diet looks normally different than the dog's diet. That means you expect other bacteria to be in you than in your dog. And raw goat's milk might be not too bad, but don't forget, milk is made for babies to grow. So any type of extra growth factor has a negative impact on adult human or animal. If you do it in small amounts, not a problem, but it might cause stomach upset. It might cause reactions because even the babies react to milk. That means they get rid of it as soon as they can because it's just not made for us to thrive after the first growth spurt when we are babies. Same for dogs and cats.
Yeah. Okay, great.
But can I add something there? But
yes,
still, goat milk is better than any other milk for dogs and cats. So don't get me wrong. You are not doing something very wrong, but keep the amount low.
Yeah, in moderation. That's fantastic. We've got Anna asking what's the best food for a rat terrier, and I'm bringing it up with this one with advice for yeast on canines because it doesn't really matter. I mean, sometimes it matters what breed it is. For if you've got specific breed issues, like Timo's just explained, that a Great Dane is got very different needs to some other dogs. And I do think also, I do want to say, in our cat and dog nutrition courses, the reason we call them an introduction, they're way more than an introduction because they cover so much detail. But what we can't go into in there is every possible disease that your dog might or cat might have and what you do for that. That will be more in our advanced course. But yeah, what do you want to say about the yeast on the canine?
Are you talking about yeast as nutrition or are you talking about yeast as a problem?
I think the problem.
Yeah, so yeast as a problem happens if you have too many carbohydrates in your food. Nothing else. So yeast needs carbohydrates to grow. Every yeast is growing on carbs. So if you have carbohydrates in the food, let's say from kibble or whatever type of carbs there are, the yeast can only grow on it. So drop the yeast and
drop the carbs.
Drop the carbs and it will drop the yeast. So for yeast as nutritional source, it is in small amounts very useful. It's very rich in certain things, and it can also mobilize and manipulate the immune system for more balance. But again, it's not really something that I would suggest as the 1+ ultra, a non+ ultra food, not 1+, non+, and but it has a positive effect, especially in this environment that we are living. So if you cannot give fresh food, fresh berries and fresh seaweed to your dogs and cats in small amounts, yeast extract, if it's not salted, so we are not talking about Marmite, can be beneficial, but small amounts.
Yeah. Okay, we've got a good comment from Ocean Waves about just a comment about small amounts of frankincense essential oil applied topically. Yeah, that is really good. Just be very careful with applying. Just seek professional advice for applying essential oils topically from cats because I've had a lot of questions on that. I don't know if we're running out of time. There's a few points I want to summarize, but just a quick one here for Shelley about her dog when they have a heart murmur.
Okay, so why does your dog has the heart murmur? So this is number one question. Which valve is not working properly, or is the heart murmur based on valve problems? Because sometimes diabetes can cause heart murmurs, and sometimes even some type of abdominal imbalance, colics, might cause heart murmurs. So first of all, go to a cardiologist, not someone else, not your local vet. Try to find a cardiologist. Go get some proper ultrasound echocardiography. Look at each and every valve, how they move, and how the blood moves inside. Because through the echocardiography, you can see how the fluids, the blood in this case, is moving back and forth. So you can find out insufficiencies, changes in the heart muscle growth, heart muscle form and strength and thickness, and that will give you a better picture. And then ask me again. You can join next week or whatever, whenever you get this results. I will help you out.
Yeah, and I've got lots of advice for that as well. But I would also like to make sure that she includes in those checkups, Timo, about cardiomyopathy as well, to make
That
sure
is correct.
that
So
the
yeah,
vet checks for that, because it's really, really important that we know what the root cause of the problem is, so that we can then suggest some appropriate solutions, because they're different depending on what is actually going on. Lovely. So one of the things I wanted to just finish off with is that me, when you're looking at the microbiome,
yeah,
is first and foremost, stop destroying it.
yeah.
So what I mean by stop destroying it, look at the chemicals you're using in your house and the environment. And that includes things like air fresheners, cleaners. It includes things that if you're using any shampoos, if you're going to the dog's going to the groomers, your cat's unlikely to be going to the groomers. It includes topical flea treatments. It includes chemical wormers. It includes pollutants in your food, in your water, what environment you're in. So the number one thing we're trying to do, first of all, is stop the root cause of the problem. And there's many: EMF pollution, stress, which we'll come on to another day. So have a look and say, what can be destroying or disrupting my animal's microbiome? And bear in mind, everything we've spoken about today equally applies to you humans, because often our animals are an early warning sign for what's going on with us. And then the second thing is feed the animal's microbiome appropriately. So, we've gone on, and you'll see the discount codes for the cat and dog nutrition courses, because it's so important that they've got the right food I don't like using good bacteria, because all bacteria have a purpose. So to the right food to make your microbiome of whatever species it is thrives is absolutely crucial. And thirdly, from me, is this is a lifestyle issue, sort of getting away from the fact that we can have a tablet to put right a series of problems, looking at the whole of the lifestyle and saying what's causing these issues initially, and how can we incorporate more healthy choices into yours and your animal's lifestyle. So where possible, get your animal out in nature, allow them to be a dog, allow them to be a cat. And where that's not possible, then it's your responsibility to bring nature to your animal. Okay.
Yeah, and one of the good things you can do, for instance, you can have if you have a balcony, if you're living in an apartment, you can also have a mini garden for yourself with soil, with plants, with parsley, things that your dogs and cats can chew on, always get in contact. Then you can always drop some healthy chicken, mouse, rabbit poo, or just make it healthier and bring different bacteria inside. Feed as much as possible raw, and get all these things in to make sure that the dog and cat has a healthy gut population. So it's important.
Yeah. So bringing nature to it, because we're all in different situations and we've all got different challenges. So, as potted plants, lovely, great plastic trays, which you can fill with soil. You can put some plastic down underneath to protect your flooring, etc. Let the animals roll. Let them roll in dried herbs. Let them chew on plants, as Timo said. So there's a lot we can do to be really creative, to bring safe nature to our animals. But the more we and our animals get out in nature, the better. So any parting words from you, Timo?
Yeah, buy some organic veggies like celery sticks or carrots and let them chew on without washing it. That's a good toy, and in the same time good nutrition and good bacteria they can get from there too. And just make sure that your civilization doesn't kill your animals. So just Bob is right. He didn't clean his house for a very long time. That's why he's so strong.
Yeah, and as Timo knows, I'm always chewing on celery.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
I just don't go anywhere without my celery. It's the first thing when we go to Little Ormond I go and buy, isn't it? But as usual, you guys have got fantastic questions as always. Timo and I will be doing a monthly question and answer. Can you also, we'd love some feedback, wouldn't you, Timo, for anyone who's watching this live, but also people who watch it afterwards, about whether you'd prefer us to do like once a week longer videos like this for an hour, whether you prefer us to do shorter sort of 10-15 minute videos. We'd love some feedback from you on that, because we want to make it as useful as possible for all of you. So very happy to receive any suggestions from you. Oh, next week,
right.
No, next week. Just once.
Next week we will do something very interesting. We will try to teach you or show you how to check your dogs and cats regularly, physically, how to make a checkup without causing much disturbance or panic in your animal, and keep touching them in a playful way to keep them under control, like you would do with your children. Always touch them, have contact, and see if they have any type of pain or discomfort, or some movement. For instance, you can pull the leg and the cat doesn't want to give the leg, and then you suddenly understand why it's limping slightly for a while, and have complete control over your pet's health. And we will try to teach you how to do these things in a playful and natural way.
Yeah, shame we're not together. We could demonstrate on each other.
Yeah.
But I'll try and see if I can capture some of my dogs and cats to show you, but it might be a bit difficult with my video setting. Sorry, Mystic Mimi, I can't really answer that question now about the choking on the water, because again, it's quite an in-depth question. But if you look back through our videos, Timo and I did do a video on water, so go back and have a listen to that, and then perhaps bring that to the general question and answer session we'll do once a month. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Timo, as always. And we will see you all next week. Bye.
Bye.